everyone! For today's video, we will be talking about one of the prophetic books in the Old Testament, and we will discuss the personal background of the author as well as the message of the book. The Book of Habakkuk. Prophet Habakkuk lived final decades of Israel's southern kingdom, and it was a time of idolatry, injustice, corruption, and all forms of evil. Unlike other prophets, Prophet Habakkuk doesn't accuse Israel, nor use the name of God to judge Israel. Rather, he directly addressed God with his struggle and questions God's goodness as he sees so much wickedness around the world. So, he launches two complaints with God. First is that the life of Israel becomes horrible, and Habakkuk crying out, asking for God to do something. And it seemed to him that God wasn't answering his prayers. But all of a sudden, God responded and said that he was very aware of all the wickedness of the people of Israel. And what he did is he summoned the armies and the kingdom of Babylon to judge Israel. But Habakkuk had another problem with God's response, and he offers his second complaint. He said that Babylon is even worse country than Israel, and it's more corrupt, more violent, and injustice. And he again questioned God. He said that, how can you, holy God, use such an evil nation as an instrument to judge Israel? And he demanded explanation. The response of God to the second complaint of Habakkuk goes like this. He gives promise to Habakkuk, and he assured that these promises will happen in appointed time in the future. And he reminded Habakkuk that even though it may seem to be slow in coming, but it will eventually come. In fact, God said that the righteous person will live by their faith in these promises. So the promises that God gave to Habakkuk includes bringing the nation of Babylon down. God said that the violence and oppression of nation creates a never-ending cycle of revenge, and God will use this revenge to bring the rise and fall of the nation. Another promise is that God may use the corrupt nation of Babylon, but he will never endorse their evilness, and all nations will be accountable to God's justice. With God's response, Habakkuk amazed, and he trusted and never questioned God again of his capabilities. The appointed time comes. The Israel's evilness vanish, and the Babylon falls down. All of those happens in God's justice, God's best plans, and God's perfect timing. There's a lot of messages that we can get from the book of Habakkuk. First is that God's ways are not our ways, yet He can be trusted no matter what. Second is that even when things seem chaotic, God is still in control. Third is that our timing is just our timing, but God's timing is perfect. Fourth is that when we pray, God answers. He always answers our prayers, but it comes in His own ways and His own timing, and not ours. That's all.